Say that you a baller. You lame, can't play this game. Step up to the plate, cause you say that you a baller.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of the NESN Celtics podcast. I'm Dakota Randall. It's my first time doing the show with you guys, along with Josh Schrock, who was there for the first episode. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. So right off the bat, we should take care of some house cleaning. First of all, the last episode, I believe, was you, Darren Hartwell.
Yes.
And Courtney?
And Courtney.
And Courtney Cox. Since the recording of that episode, NESN.com's Darren Hartwell has become someone else's Darren Hartwell.
Yep.
He has left us, and we are here to pick up the pieces.
He'll be missed.
He'll be missed by a few people, and we're here to pick up the pieces, and we'll try and put them together into something relatively listenable. So again, this is the second episode of the NESN Celtics podcast, and later in this episode, we're going to have an interview. Courtney did an interview with the Athletic Toronto's Blake Murphy. Obviously, the Celtics have a game coming up with the Raptors, so we'll get into that. And so Courtney talked to Blake a little bit. Blake actually mentioned that the Morris twins, obviously Marcus and the Celtics, Markieff on the Wizards, people aren't too big a fan of theirs in Toronto. And so you can look forward to that in Courtney's interview. But of course, we're here to talk about the Celtics. So Josh, let's get into it. Let's kind of reset the table. Obviously, the big thing is the most recent West Coast road trip that couldn't have gone much worse.
Yeah.
Celtics went 1-4, including kind of a fake win against the Suns.
Yeah. Did that even count?
No, it did not. I mean, it was a good win, but
down 22 to the 2-11 Suns.
Yeah, to one of the worst teams in the NBA. You shouldn't really be in that spot. So I guess I'll just ask you. At this point, are you among those panicking about the Celtics? Are they? A lot of people expected them to struggle to integrate everybody back in. Is it worse than you thought it would be?
I don't know if it's worse. I think some of their issues have been more shocking than others. I think the offense is just. It's been so bad. I mean, Jason Tatum's taking a lot of really bad long twos. Jaylen Brown, 27 for 51 on shots at the rim. The starters they haven't gelled at all.
No, they haven't. And, you could see it during the games. Brad Stevens is toying with a lot of rotations, trying to find which lineups he likes best. And, I expected this a little bit, but I didn't expect them to go out on the West Coast and lose. The Celtics last year, and even when they were still trying to figure things out at the beginning, they were winning some of those games. And to go out there and really just get dismissed in 4 of those games was tough.
And it's not even so much the losing. I mean, you can dismiss the loss to Indiana on the Oladipo three-pointer as time expired, but you give up a 48 spot to Jamal Murray and the Nuggets. You're down 20 to the Suns. You're down 20 to 1 point to the Jazz, and then you go to Portland and you're down 20 there at 1 point too. So, they're bad all around.
Right. I think it was in the last 3 games on the trip. I might have this wrong, but I think in the last 3, at some point in all of those games, you were down 20.
They were.
And obviously, that's not a recipe for success. And we'll get into possible lineup configurations in a bit, but it's worth mentioning that we're recording this on Wednesday, so before the Celtics game with the Bulls. But it's earlier today, Gordon Hayward said that he would be willing to come off the bench if it meant, helping the team win.
For the best of the team.
For the best of the team. I'm not exactly sure. So Gordon said, for me, I'm happy to be on the court. Number one, more than anything, and whatever I can do to help us win. He said before the season that he'd be willing to come off the bench. So I guess I'll ask you, I think a lot of us have looked at this team, and the person that stood out the most that's kind of struggling with having everybody back into the fold is Jaylen Brown.
Right.
And especially with Gordon Hayward having to get his shots. Do you think it's as simple as just putting Gordon Hayward on the bench?
I honestly don't know if that's the answer, because you have to kind of weigh how you're playing now with your long-term goals. And Gordon Hayward's obviously a big part of what they want to do long-term. And eventually they're going to have to get him reintegrated. He's going to have to be the guy that they paid him to be before the injury. And Jaylen Brown has been bad.
Jaylen Brown has been
all bad.
And I've always said this. When I watch Jaylen Brown, he's an athletic freak and seems like a nice guy and all this stuff. But to me, it's never looked like the game has come natural to him. And his shot has improved and he plays great defense. So I'm not saying he's not a basketball player. But I just watch him sometimes and I'm like, it just doesn't look like it comes naturally. It's not smooth with him sometimes.
Right, and I think with Gordon, he's not forcing anything. It's not like he's taking ill-advised shots or bricking a lot of things. He's almost just more tentative, and that might just be an issue of just keeping him in there and getting him, continue to get him more use. He got 31 minutes against the Blazers. That's a season high.
Right.
So I think if anything, I would keep Gordon in the lineup, and maybe you move Jaylen to the bench.
Yeah, I mean that could be one way to do it. You just again, and this is what what a lot of people talked about leading into the season is if you put Jaylen Brown on the bench after the playoffs that he had last year, what message does that send him? Do you lose him? I mean, again, people forget. You forget because these guys are like 6'7", 6'8", and they played really well in the playoffs. These guys are 20, 19, 20, 21 years old. So I mean, they are kids, and you start benching them, they start hearing all this noise. You wonder if it gets to them. So again, I agree with you. It's almost like Stevens is saying, I know this is going to be tough. I'm just going to keep forcing it because at some point we're going to get there.
Right.
But to me, the biggest problem with Hayward is, I mean, teams are just targeting him on defense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could see it in that Utah game. They just, every time, screen and roll, get the switch, attack.
Right. And, and before the injury, he was a pretty good defensive player. And it's just right now, obviously the ankle's part of it and part of it is rust, but he's just not there right now. And teams are just going right after him. And Stevens continues to keep him on the floor at the end of games in these big situations, and you just wonder when he's going to go away from that if he ever does. So I don't know. I
think you'll see tonight. Obviously, we don't know what happens against the Bulls, but let's say they get blown out, then a change has got to come.
There's no way they're going to get blown out by the Bulls.
I mean,
it is, and so the thing with the NBA, I mean, this can all change, pretty quickly. Where if the Celtics go out and beat the Raptors on Friday. Is that when they play Friday?
Friday, yeah.
Then, this whole narrative changes and you go, okay, well, when it needs to come, just like when LeBron and his teams would start out slow and then they'd play a big game against some, marquee opponent.
Flip the switch.
And they'd look like them and you'd be like, okay, so we know what this is. And they'll figure it out. And so you wonder if maybe that's coming on Friday, but it's not so much the wins and losses because you're going to win and lose in this game. It's just how they've looked. It hasn't looked the same. The defense has looked rough.
Terrible.
As you said, the offense has been bad.
The offense has been, everyone's been bad other than, after a couple rough games, Kyrie's kind of steadied his own ship, but Horford shooting 27% from three, Jalen 27% from three.
Those aren't good numbers.
They're not good numbers, especially when you're taking a lot of threes. You're not getting to the rim. You're not getting to the free throw line.
Yeah. And and Gordon Hayward right now is averaging just under 10 points a game and 4.6 5.5 rebounds and just under 3 assists.
But he does have the worst on-off court splits of anyone on the team. The Celtics are a plus 9.3 with him off the court, minus 3.8 with him on the court.
So good numbers. I did not know those.
Yeah.
So right. So I think, I think Gordon Hayward. He's an adult and he's a veteran player in this league, and he's so close with Brad Stevens. I have to believe that if they came to this agreement like, hey, you got to go to the bench right now while we figure this out. I don't think you're going to lose Gordon Hayward.
No.
He's got a $100 million contract. I think he'll be okay.
And I think he knows, like Brad Stevens probably knows, is it's a matter of time before he finds it.
What I think, maybe tell me if you agree or not.
Sure.
And Jaylen Brown has been an issue. There's no doubt about it. But to me, the biggest difference is right now they have not been able to find a way to get anything meaningful out of Terry Rozier. Because there's enough in Terry Rozier to be a legitimate game-changing player off the bench. And whether it be the times he's coming in and just the minutes he's been given, it just hasn't looked the same for him.
Oh, yeah. He had a breakout performance in the playoffs, and it's almost like getting a taste of that starting point guard role and then going back to the bench kind of has affected his offensive game.
Because, Terry Rozier could start, and people have said this, but it's true. Terry Rozier could start for at least half the teams in this league.
Yep. He's shooting 35.2% on 2-point shots and has only tried 12 shots at the rim over the first 13 games.
And that's absolutely in contrast to how he usually plays.
Exactly.
So, and we'll get to Terry Rozier later. There have been some trade rumors about him that the Celtics have categorically denied, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
One more note on Rozier before we jump off. Through 13 games, the Celtics have a 96.7 offensive rating with him on the floor. For contrast, the last place Suns have a 100.3 offensive rating.
Wow. Okay.
So they've not been good with Terry Rozier on the floor.
No, and so and again, this is all so different than what it looked like last year, and you just have to, I guess at this point, you just have to put your faith in Brad Stevens that they'll figure this out. Because again, in the NBA is such a talent-driven league that eventually talent wins out.
And they have it.
Right. Yeah. And so it is weird. And so we'll get to Terry Rozier later on. But I kind of wanted to get into a lot of the quotes that came out of that road trip. And that's kind of what everyone around the Celtics has been talking about. Kyrie Irving went out and said that he'd like to see the Celtics have a 15-year veteran to sort of help them realize that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Kind of like the one he left in Cleveland, right?
Right. And so that's my thing. I'm like, you had that in LeBron James. So which one is it, Kyrie? And then it came out that Marcus Smart called out his teammates after that game, or after the game against the Blazers, and then Marcus Smart also, I think he was talking to Chris Forsberg over at NBC Sports. We won't mention them. He had what I thought was a really interesting quote, and so I'll just kind of paraphrase it a little bit. He said, "We can't be okay with being fighters." Brad Stevens came in and he gave us this whole speech about, you guys are fighters, you're resilient. For us to keep coming back down 20, but as a team, I just feel like we shouldn't even accept being down 20 and having to fight and come back. And there's only so much that Brad and the coaching staff can do. We cannot be okay with that. We have to look ourselves in the mirror, look at one another, hold each other accountable, and figure out what's going on. So first of all, I like that from Marcus Smart. I like him, kind of taking this leadership role. What I'm wondering is, it looks like Kyrie is saying, Kyrie for me is putting it on the young guys and saying we need more veteran leadership. I mean, it's what he said. And Smart is clearly trying to be a leader. Yeah. And so I just wonder how that's playing in the locker room.
I mean, I think Marcus Smart's quote comes more out of the fact that after the Blazer game, Brad Stevens did what any really good coach would do and just fell on the sword, right? They go 1-4 on the road trip and he says, hey, we're getting out-coached. We're not well-coached right now, and that's on me. And I think Marcus and Al and a lot of those guys in the locker room probably look at it and say, no, it's not your fault.
Right.
We're just playing like trash.
Right.
Which, they are. And Kyrie's veteran comment, I don't know how that's going to play overall in the locker room, because you think Al Horford's been in the league, 10, 11 years?
Right. Al Horford's only 2 years behind what Kyrie is looking for.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, if I'm Al Horford, I'm like, well, what are we talking about here? I'm 12. I'm like, everyone talks about me like I am the veteran guy on this team. Like, that's my role. Yeah. Is that I'm this veteran presence. And Baines, I didn't realize Baines has only been in the league 6 years. I looked at him like, oh, he's been in this league for 10 years. Awesome.
Hayward's been in 8, 9.
Right. So you think you have it. And Kyrie's been there. Part of it I wonder is, if you're a Celtic player, would you buy into Marcus Smart being a leader?
I mean, Marcus Smart has been one of their 2 best players so far this season. I mean, when he comes on the court, almost nothing goes wrong. He's actually been taking a lot less shots, which is good for him.
When he takes them, he misses them, but that's fine.
Right.
That's going to happen.
You got to take that. But I mean, they've been good with him on the floor.
Yes, and I think his play on the court is the lead by example and stuff of leadership. But it's hard for me to think that there aren't some players in that locker room that are like, Marcus, you've been punching picture frames. And you're out here flopping all the time. You're getting in fights. You punched someone in the front row in college. Yep. You almost lost your season last year from swiping out a picture frame. So it's like, who are you to be calling us out and saying this stuff? I
mean, I think the team probably reacts better than maybe you or I, because they all seem to generally like Marcus, and he brings a lot of energy to the team. And, he's a franchise guy. But I think as far as leadership goes, I mean, that's got to be Kyrie.
I agree.
Kyrie wants to be the guy. He's got to go be the guy. You don't need a 14 or 15-year veteran to hold the young guy's hands. You go do it if that's the issue.
Especially because, and I understand, this point about having a 14, 15-year veteran, I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, look at the Celtics championship team when they had P.J. Brown and guys like that. And, the whole team were veterans. But there is a role for guys like that. But for Kyrie, I mean, you've talked about re-signing here. You've talked about this is where you want to be. Al Horford's not going to be here forever.
He might not even be here after this year.
Yeah, he might not even be here after this year. You might be next to Gordon Hayward, the oldest guy on this team. If this is going to be your franchise going forward, you have to kind of step up and be the leader.
Yeah. I will say I did like a lot of what Kyrie said after that game, saying, hey, the good feelings are over from the offseason. Right. We've been bad, and, we got to get to work. But the leadership comment was certainly odd.
Right. And beyond, the players sort of, the way they're playing and everything, I think what's bothering me particularly is the way they're carrying themselves. And so let's get back into Jaylen Brown a little bit. And I don't
He's
have
a 5-time champion.
Yes, right. And so you have, I think Marcus Smart gets it. What he's saying, he gets it. What Kyrie Irving is saying, he gets it. Al Horford, all these guys get it. And the one player I wonder about is Jaylen Brown, because again and again, this guy who is 1-0, who still can't shoot free throws, who misses more than half of his layups. Yeah. Okay, and he's out, and he goes out and he says, by the time he's 27, he expects to have 5 championship rings. And he was always saying during the offseason, well, if we had Kyrie, absolutely we would have beat the Cavs. But you didn't, and you lost because you missed 1,000,000 threes in Game 7.
Wide open threes at that.
Great. You missed those, Jaylen, okay? Kyrie didn't miss those. You missed those. And he's one of these guys also that keeps saying, oh, we can take the Warriors. We can beat the Warriors. And You wonder between that and Jason Tatum working out with Kobe Bryant, telling him to shoot all the time. Everyone drinking the Terry Rozier Kool-Aid. Like, are these guys feeling themselves too much?
I think they definitely were feeling themselves coming off that playoff run. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Like you said earlier, they're young guys.
As they should. I mean, again, if you're 19, you're going to be like, I'm the man.
They played really well. They deserve all the credit.
Right. I got 1 million Twitter, Instagram followers. Everyone loves me.
Yeah, I was on the SportsCenter top 10 dunking on LeBron.
Right. Jason Tatum on the cover, slam, all this stuff.
Right.
But I just, I'm surprised it happened to them because of the way they played last year. But it's hard not to look at them and think, wow, these guys started reading the clippings and buying into the hype.
They absolutely did, because the minute LeBron went to the Lakers, everything was about the Celtics.
Right.
They're the kings of the East for the next 5-7 years. They're going to challenge the Warriors this year. They're built perfectly to play Golden State. They play Golden State tough. And I mean, like you said, they're young, so of course they're gonna buy into their own hype to a certain extent. But that's where a guy like Kyrie, or Al, or Gordon has to come in and kind of steady it, especially after the start. Right,
and I think that there's a fine line between being confident, because I think they are an extremely confident team, and
you need to be confident.
Obviously. Yeah, you obviously have to be confident.
Yeah.
And you can be cocky too. I mean, come on, Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce thinks he's the best basketball player ever.
Right.
And he's like maybe top 40.
Maybe.
And if he's lucky. Okay. So I mean, but there's a line, and I just you hope maybe that this this road trip and this start to the season will humble them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out. I mean, it doesn't get any easier, and especially in the East. I mean, the Raptors have gotten off to a good start. The Bucks have gotten off to a good start. Philly with acquiring Jimmy Butler. I mean, It's not going to be a cakewalk.
No, it's not. And so we'll get to the state of the East right now, because I think what's happening in the Eastern Conference is pretty fascinating, because it's gone from being a joke and being absurdly top heavy. It's still a little top heavy, but I think people got to take the East a little bit more seriously than they did before.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think at least the top 5 teams are really good.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that in a little bit, but right now I want to toss it to our Courtney Cox, who did an interview with The Athletic Toronto's Blake Murphy to talk about the Celtics, talk about the Raptors, talk about the Morris twins, and all kinds of fun stuff. So we'll send it over to Courtney.
Here with Blake Murphy, the Raptors beat writer for The Athletic. Blake, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now we got to talk your Raptors, our Celtics. Obviously, this will be the second time that they've seen each other this season. First time went in your favor. Were you there at the game?
Yeah, for sure I was. It was a fun one. I'm interested to see how it looks with a few weeks under the belt for each team, though.
So that was what I was going to get to. So you guys took that one 113 to 101. Looking back on it, what were the strengths of your team and what were the main weaknesses in the Celtics?
Yeah, it's interesting because, neither team at that point looked really the way they were going to look over the next couple of weeks. The Raptors still working in Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green and a new head coach. There was still a sense that they were feeling it out. Boston, on the other side, hadn't quite slipped into the bit of a slump that they were recently on in this road trip. So, it was kind of a snapshot of what people expected for these two teams. The Raptors being good, but still figuring out, the Celtics being good while still figuring it out. Tactically, it was a pretty straightforward game. The Raptors, executed pretty well in the fourth quarter and had that pull-away stretch late, where kind of the versatility and two-way play of a lot of their wing players, kind of won the day. And that's a way Boston can play too, but the Raptors just kind of played that game better in that instance.
You bring up Kawhi Leonard. That was the major storyline for you guys during the offseason. Double-double in the first time they took on the Celtics, 31 points, 10 rebounds. How have you seen him grow since he's gotten there, and is he as crucial to this team as I think people were hoping for going into the season?
Yeah, he's definitely crucial. The Raptors are good and they're deep, and they have some young, exciting pieces, and Kyle Lowry's kind of come out the gate really strong. But their ceiling is going to be determined entirely by what level Kawhi Leonard can get back to. And we've seen flashes of Kawhi Leonard looking like MVP level Kawhi Leonard. And there have been some games, particularly after he took a couple games off due to a jammed foot, where, he looked a little rusty and looked like a guy who only played 9 games last year and had gone 9 months without playing 5-on-5 before the season started. So he's still he's still ramping it back up, not just physically, but finding his place in the offense. They're probably isolating with him a little too much as he kind of gets that comfort zone. But for the most part, he's been great. He's averaging, somewhere around 25 points a game on pretty strong efficiency. He's been one of their better rebounders, which is, a weakness for that team because they're playing small so often, and he's kind of been the one guy who's chipping in more than his weight in that area. And then defensively, not for 48 minutes at a time, but you see for stretches of a couple of possessions or even a whole quarter or a half where, there's a reason he was one of the rare perimeter players to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Well, an interesting stat when looking at the last game, Marcus Morris, who's been pretty incredible for the Celtics this season, coming off the bench and really kind of performing better than some of the starters for the Celtics. In that game, the Raptors held him to 8 points, 2 rebounds. How do you think that they were able to do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of it is guys are just going to have up and down games. Marcus Morris is a player type who for a long time has given the Raptors some trouble. He's a bigger kind of combo forward who could shoot it a little bit and gets really physical inside. With the Raptors having the weakness that they do on their own defensive glass, that's on paper a matchup Morris should do really well. And I think in that case, they threw bodies toward him. They were physical with him. They made sure he didn't get comfortable. And the one thing that the Raptors can do a little better this year than they could do in previous years where a guy like Morris would maybe do well against them is when they go small or they go switchy and they want to lean on that versatility, they still have a lot of positional size. They're not playing traditional small ball. OG Anunoby might be the power forward or Pascal Siakam or Kawhi Leonard. And those are bigger guys who, a player like Morris, while really good, can't bully as much as maybe he did CJ Miles at the 4 last year. So I think, the Raptors are a little more flexible for a mismatched speaker like Morris.
If we're talking about Morris, you probably know where I'm getting to. He did make a quote, a headline for most news outlets, saying that the Celtics were more talented than the Raptors. Did that make its rounds in Toronto?
It did, and it's a pattern of both the Morris brothers. Markieff Morris has, with 2 playoffs or with the recent playoff series against Toronto, and then the early victory of Toronto in Washington. He's said some things that riled up Raptors fans too. So I don't know how welcome the Morris fans are around Scotiabank Arena. I don't think anyone thought too much of it because I think this early in the year, a veteran leader type like Morris, you want to have your guys back and you want to try to pick them up by saying things like that. After a tough loss against a good team like that. So it's understandable, but the Morris brothers aren't exactly favorites around Toronto.
Okay, so biggest key for the Raptors in this matchup for you?
I think the big one is whether or not Kawhi Leonard plays. It's a back-to-back scenario. He's been sitting out one half of each back-to-back so far on the season. There hasn't been word as of this conversation, which of Friday or Saturday he'll sit if he sits either leg. So that's a big one. And then, Kyle Lowry started the season shooting incredibly hot and has gone a little cold since then. I'm saying this before Wednesday's game, so maybe he reverts course. But with Kyrie Irving being the player that he is and having the capability to kind of take over a game on the offensive end, I think outside of Leonard, Lowry, shooting well and giving the Raptors that scoring spark in addition to his playmaking spark goes a long way. He can't let Irving win that matchup because Irving's Irving's really, really good and can kind of swing that matchup if Lowry's having a quieter night.
All right. Well, Blake, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Awesome, Blake. That's so great. So we
Cool.
are going to get this probably out tomorrow. We'll make sure to tag you and everything, and if you could retweet or do whatever,
Yeah, of course.
That would be great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks, Courtney. Nice to talk to you.
All right. Thank you, Courtney, and thank you, Blake. Good stuff, as always, from Courtney. And as we said, I think it's appropriate to look at the Eastern Conference and the state of it right now. First of all, the standings. I mean, if the Celtics are planning on running away in the Eastern Conference, they have some ground to make up.
I think that ship's already sailed.
Because the Celtics right now are 7-6, and the Raptors are 12-2. Granted, it's early, but you're 4.5 games back at first. Raptors 12-2 in first, then it's Bucks at 10-3, Sixers at 9-6, Pacers at 8-6, and then your Boston Celtics right in the middle of the road where you thought they'd be.
Yep.
So I think we all believe in the Raptors, right? You believe in the Raptors?
They're the best team in the East.
Yeah. You think so?
Yeah.
Like today or
Today
big picture of the whole
probably
thing?
Going forward.
With Kawhi.
With Kawhi, they're the best team.
They're pretty good. I think
another year of Siakam, Anunoby. The Danny Green ad was also huge. They've been really
Danny
good.
Green ad. Danny Green ad is a sneaky addition for that
That really was good, yeah.
because that's a guy who's been there in championship games.
Yep.
Kawhi's comfortable with him.
Good defender, knockdown shooter.
Right. And that bench is still pretty good.
Yep. CJ Miles, Norman Powell.
And and again, almost everybody in the NBA is soft. But the entire league is a pillow. But
all right.
The Raptors in
Stop
particular.
yelling at the sky.
The Raptors in particular have been the softest team, bowing out to LeBron the last few years. But now he's gone.
LeBronto's gone.
LeBronto's gone.
Yeah. They can retake their
so-
city.
Right. He did so like Drake might get his day this time around.
I think so.
With no Bronto.
Yeah.
No Ford Bronto. So I think I agree, and I also believe the Raptors might have a better home court advantage than you. The Celtics have a great home court advantage, but
I think we the North is unreal.
and I say that because when the Celtics get to who they're eventually going to be, I don't think they will. And I say this, but playoffs last year, but I just think that was kind of an outlier. And I think when they are who they're going to be, they'll be fine on the road. But the disparity between them at home and them on the road won't be that great. The Raptors, on the other hand, they play so much better at home than they play on the road. It's ridiculous. And if you let them get home court advantage, you might be in trouble even if you're better than them.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Lowry in particular is almost a different player.
It's stupid. When they play in Toronto, they hit every shot. That place goes bananas.
Yeah.
A bunch of people, I don't know.
I mean, we saw it even second game of the season when the Celtics went up there. I mean, think that's the first meaningful game they had, and they kind of just pitter pattered, and then Kawhi went bananas in the fourth quarter, and the building exploded, and that was all she wrote.
And that game was so bad because they reminded you like, oh crap, we forgot that Kawhi is better than everybody else.
Right, everyone forgot he was a top 3 player before he got hurt.
He is so nasty. He's so much nastier than well, I don't want to say that much nastier than Kyrie Irving, but he's definitely better.
I'll
than
take Kawhi.
Yeah, Kawhi is, and people got down on him for his like really really weird laugh, which I think, I would be hesitant to give him a long-term contract because of that laugh. I think it says a lot about him.
Certainly be a sticking point contract talks this offseason.
Yeah, I don't know if I can.
Kawhi, we got to shove the laugh if you want your max deal.
Right, and the whole thing with him, the Spurs, obviously. So, I know like there's people are concerned about his commitment issues, him playing back-to-backs, but I think the Raptors are legit. So let's move on from them. What do you make of the Bucks? Because they're 10-3. Giannis is Giannis, and he keeps getting better. They gave the Celtics, a real push in that first round last year.
Let's just call it what it was. If the Bucks had anyone that wasn't cardboard cutout as a head coach, they'd probably beat the Celtics.
Right. And it looks like they play. I mean, again, and you're talking under Jason Kidd.
Joe Prunty.
Or Joe Prunty, sorry.
Yeah, Jason Kidd got his
got
walking
canned.
papers, yeah.
Right.
So Joe Prunty in his Macy's suits had to play Jason Terry 15 minutes a game in Game 7.
Right.
But no, I mean, getting Mike Budenholzer was, that honestly, other than you think LeBron going to the Lakers, that might be the acquisition of the offseason. He's been huge for them. Their pace is up. Giannis has been unreal. I mean, the space and pace, Brook Lopez was a good addition for them.
I agree. Brook Lopez was a good addition for them. They look a lot better, and they looked in the game, and it's one game, but the game they played against the Celtics, they didn't look nearly as stupid as they did last year. They looked, like, even though they won games last year, I watched them. I'm like, this is the most dumbass team.
They're just better coached this year. That's why.
And it shows you that even though the NBA is
Eric
a star
Bledsoe's not doing dumb shit anymore.
Oh, he's still such a dog. Eric Bledsoe, you can miss me with Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah.
He sucks. I mean, it's a good thing to be honest, because if Eric Bledsoe, do you remember when teams were trying to make him a foundational piece?
Oh yeah, like when the Cavs thought about trading for him, Kyrie for him.
No thanks on Eric Bledsoe. I mean, he's all right and everything, but
strong pass.
Yeah, Drew Bledsoe. Okay, so that obviously brings us to the Philadelphia 76ers, and obviously everyone knows the Sixers added Jimmy Butler in exchange for Robert Covington, who I think sucks. Some people think is good, whatever. Dario Saric, who I think is good. Some people think is great. I think he's replaceable.
I think he'll be really good in Minnesota.
That's probably true. But anyway, they got Jimmy Butler.
Yep.
And, we know what Jimmy Butler's about. So I want to bring you to a quote, Nick Wright, who has no credibility because he's just like us. He's just some hack, just saying stupid crap. But anyway,
King hack.
But and here I am to regurgitate it, so that's fine. And he said right now the Celtics are pretty clearly the fourth best team in their own conference. And I heard him talking about it on the TV, and he means in general, like they really are the fourth best team. And then he said their best chance in this run was to make it to the finals last year, which I think is hogwash. So I'll ask you, are the Celtics really the fourth best team in the conference? Like, do we need to reassess this? And are the Sixers now with Jimmy Butler like clearly ahead of the Celtics and maybe above or below the Raptors?
So right now, or projecting forward, because right now, yes, the Celtics are the fourth best team in the conference the way they're playing.
Yes.
But we haven't seen Jimmy Butler play with the Sixers yet. But let's assume he doesn't come in and automatically blow it up as he has his first two franchises.
Right.
It's a really good ad for them. I mean, that's the player they needed, right? That's why they talked about getting Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. They needed a wing who can defend, who can run the pick and roll, and have Simmons off-ball cutting because, I mean, we've seen it in crunch time. Ben Simmons with the ball in his hand, he's not going to shoot the ball, and it just bogs down their offense, and you got to rely on a Joel Embiid three-point heave.
Right.
So it's definitely the player they needed. Long-term, I mean, they don't have the depth now. They just traded, two of their seven rotation players with Markelle Fultz being a complete head case.
Just to stall real quick, that free throw the other night.
Yeah.
I don't know. The free throw was bad enough. Did you see the clip of him on the like he was down by the baseline
behind Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, and he he tied his shoe or something and got up and he
Oh yeah.
If anybody listening to this, just Twitter Markelle Fultz glitch, and that was the word people were using. Scroll through and you'll see what I mean. I think, and I say this, but I'm trying to be careful when I say this, but I think there might be reason to be concerned about Markelle Fultz.
So what I was talking,
what's between his ears?
I was talking to one of our other writers about this, and I think that they had a chance to get off the Markelle Fultz thing because I think you can eat Markelle Fultz if you trade him for Jimmy Butler.
Right.
And that's what they should have done. They should have found a way to either keep Sarge or Covington and thrown Fultz in that deal.
I agree. That would have been good.
Because that's the only way you can sell to a fan base, hey, we dogged the number one overall pick, our bad, but we got you a star.
Right. And I agree. That wouldn't have been a bad way to do it. The only risk is there, and
maybe he blows up, right?
Right. Well, and the reports are that Jimmy Butler plans to try and work out a contract and stay with Philly. Who knows? That's the report.
Right. Sure.
But I guess there's some risk management there where you're like, well, we can't risk trading a guy we drafted first overall last year for possibly a rental.
Sure.
I mean, that is egregious basketball malpractice and a fireable offense. However, I agree with you. Like, in principle, I would have done that too because I look at Markelle Fultz and I'm like, I look at you, I'm like, even if you become and fill your potential, like, I just don't think your ceiling is what people thought it was coming out of the draft.
And let's look at it this way. Let's say in hypothetical land they were able to throw Fultz into the deal and keep Sarge. Your starting five is Ben Simmons, J.J. Redick, Jimmy Butler, Dario Saric, Joel Embiid. That is really, really good.
I mean, you could say better than everyone talks about the Celtics' death lineup that has Al Horford. I'm sorry.
That does nothing?
You can't have Al Horford.
The coma lineup?
Right. You can't have Al Horford in it and call it a death lineup.
The nap lineup.
The nap lineup, yeah, the snooze, yeah, exactly, the nap lineup. But that, like you're saying, that would have been, I think, a better starting five.
Absolutely.
Now, the question is, of course, with the Sixers is, do they have that thing in them with, I mean, I question the head coaching sometimes, but do they have that gene, to really be a winning club? And I thought they looked pretty bad in the playoffs last year, and there was an element of softness. And is Jimmy Butler, and he's such a weird player, and I've actually come to hate him in the last couple of months.
He would be someone you'd hate.
I do, and I just for many reasons. But do you think his whole personality is enough to sort of shift the mindset of that team and to knock some sense into them?
Okay, I think his personality is going to be a great fit with Embiid. Because
I agree.
Embiid already thinks he's the baddest man on the planet.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, those two, I think that's going to be a great match. I think the only thing you maybe worry about is the fit with Ben Simmons. But, I mean, Ben Simmons is basically a robot and has been built for this his whole life, so I'm really not worried about that.
He is a robot. I do not like Ben Simmons.
I know you don't.
And I also wonder, like, is he just going to kill Markelle Fultz? Like, are we...
Another reason why they should have just traded him.
Right.
Because you get 2 weeks into Jimmy Butler trying to help him learn how to shoot, and Jimmy's not going to... I mean, he couldn't put up with Andrew Wiggins' cornrows.
Right, exactly. Like, is Markelle Fultz basically like Andrew Wiggins? And that's
but with lacking the talent.
Right, exactly. And I worry about that too. But again, then what are your problems here? if you're the Sixers and that happens, then you got to recognize right away. All right, well then there's a problem with the makeup of this team.
Yeah.
So either way, I think it's probably a win-win because Jimmy Butler comes in and he switches the whole mindset of the team. Great. And if he comes in and it's clearly not a good fit, that means you now know that your team sucks and is full of a bunch of losers, and you can sort of reassess and figure out, well, which are the ones that we need a can.
Right. I do think, I'm just going to go on the record, I think it's going to be a good fit.
I think so. I do too. What I do wonder is,
especially with the way Embiid's been playing this year.
Yeah.
He has been absolutely dominant.
He has been really good. And yeah, he is really good.
Yeah.
The only thing I wonder, Jimmy Butler, I've never been, when there were always the rumors about the Celtics trading for him, I always said no, just because.
You thought Jaylen Brown could become that?
Maybe, I guess. But my bigger concern was I just don't think I would not give Jimmy Butler a max contract. He's just not the guy I would do that to because aside from his supposed leadership, which I think is crap now because of the way he carried himself in Minnesota, but his best skill is mid-range jump shots and kind of driving to the basket and getting fouled. I just think his skill set is irrelevant in today's NBA, and not irrelevant like there's a place for it, but I don't think you can build a team around a guy whose best asset is his ability to hit elbow jump shots and drive to the hole and get hurt sometimes and miss games and kind of be a knucklehead. I'm not.
I have a counter for you.
Okay.
He is not the guy they're building the team around.
Well, okay, you're right. All right,
that's Joel Embiid, and I think that his game, the way you described it, because he has worked. He can shoot threes now, 37%. It's not great, but he can knock them down. So I think his game with Joel Embiid. You think about this: when they run the pick and roll with Ben Simmons, Embiid has to pop because Ben Simmons isn't going to come off the screen and shoot, right?
Never.
But with Jimmy Butler, now he can pop out or he can roll, and it creates a whole new dimension to the offense. So I think those two, that's going to be a ridiculous two-man game.
It is, and I agree. I agree with you. They had to get somebody. I just look at him and I'm like, is Jimmy Butler, because they needed a wing. They needed a wing scorer that could shoot and drive to the basket, like really shoot from outside.
They gave up a B+ player, a C- player, Jared Bayless's contract, and a pick.
You're right. So what did they really give up? Although, other
than Sarge.
Right. It's still a lot.
Is it that much? You can miss.
It's not a lot, but it's all.
It purges their depth, like we said.
Right.
But that can be fixed with buyouts, with buyout candidates in February.
I just wonder, is that? But it looks like they're going to try and sign him long term. Like, is this the wing that you want? Is this that? Like, you're Gordon Hayward. The Celtics identified Gordon Hayward, and you didn't know at the time that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were going to be what they were.
Sure.
But they identified Gordon Hayward as, well, you are our wing scorer, player, like foundational piece that we need. You're the missing piece. Like, is Jimmy Butler really that for the Sixers?
I think the way they looked at it though is, he clearly wasn't their first choice, right?
Right. Well, LeBron was.
Well, LeBron was. Then Paul George.
Right.
They talked about trading for Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
And eventually, you just have to go get someone like that. Like, you can't just keep holding out. Like, maybe we'll sign Kevin Durant. Maybe we'll sign Kawhi Leonard. And they just went and saw. Jimmy Butler is a B+ player. He is a star. He's not a superstar.
He's a B+ player that, on some nights can be an A.
Absolutely.
He can be an A. Sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. He can take over a game.
Right.
Exactly. So I think it's a smart move. It's a move they had to do.
Yeah, you've made me come around a little bit. I still just don't like him because, listen, all the crap he was pulling with demanding out of Minnesota, making it public, that charade that he pulled at the practice, and I get it if you're sick and tired of your teammates not matching your intensity and drive. I get that. But just the way the stories that came out of that practice, and then the other thing with him coming out and saying that, one, he will decide if he plays back-to-backs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
With how much money you make in this league, and how much people that pay all this money to go to these games. Hockey players playing back-to-back nights in a way more difficult sport.
All right.
All these other things. I'm sorry.
You're screaming at the sky again. You're screaming at the sky again.
I'm just saying. You're gonna decide when you play back-to-back. It is basketball. I have played back-to-back games too, and I am one billionth of the player that Jimmy Butler is. One billionth of the athlete. So you can play back-to-back games.
All right.
I'm sorry.
So no, you can say that, but he wasn't saying he couldn't play back-to-backs.
No, but you don't have the right.
But it worked out for him. He got what he wanted.
Okay, well, whatever. Got what you wanted. So a lot of crappy people get what they want. It doesn't mean that I like them and need to endorse them. It's not up to you. If your coach tells you you're playing tonight, you're playing tonight. Get your ass out there and play the game. We're paying you millions of dollars. You don't decide when you play. You're not Michael Jordan.
He wasn't. For as much as you might dislike Jimmy Butler, I can't imagine you're on Karl Anthony Towns' side either, because he comes out after the trade and says, I'm not a leader here. I'm just one of the guys. And that's what Jimmy Butler was talking about.
Right. Okay. And I get that, but it's like, you know what? Figure it out and play. And the other one, him saying that he was playing like 39 minutes a night, and he said that bleep has got to stop. We got other players on this roster that can play. I can't keep playing 38, 39 minutes a night. Okay, you know what? In principle, I get it. Like,
I mean, Tom Thibodeau does run his players into the ground.
True, but dude, suck it up. You play basketball for a living. You can be getting paid millions of dollars. I would kill to get 40 minutes a night in the NBA.
What a snowflake.
No, it's the opposite. I'm saying get to work. You know, work. Oh God, telling me what if someone goes up to his coach and says, "I'm gonna decide when I play back-to-backs. You can't play me as many minutes as you want to." Like, who are you, Jimmy Butler? You think you're like?
Well, Jimmy Butler believes he's like the fourth best player.
Right, that's what I'm saying, dude. You're just okay.
I say he'll fit well with Joel Embiid. They both have the same feelings about their game.
That's what, and maybe that'll just give them the kind of like the Sixers, the kind of nasty and the kind of just dumbass quality. I'm not calling Jimmy Butler the dumbass. I'm just saying, like, this just, I just don't like it.
I know you don't. I know you don't. That's okay. But I'm just telling you,
I can't articulate that in a NESN form.
He's gonna serve his purpose. I mean, now they have someone to give the ball to at the end of games in crunch time, other than Joel Embiid dribbling it 25 feet away from the hoop like we saw in the playoffs.
And that is huge for them because the playoffs come down to that, and obviously end of games in the NBA are their own thing, and you got a bunch of guys that couldn't shoot in those spots, other than JJ Redick. You know, you could just kind of decided.
Robert Covington wasn't doing it.
Right. And so Jimmy Butler, you're right. That is a huge part for them. I think it's a good fit. I just don't like him. I'm glad he's not on the Celtics. I'll say that.
Well, we'll hope he doesn't knock the Celtics out of the playoffs then.
Right. One other quick team I want to get to before we move on.
Sure.
Are you buying into the Pacers? I think the Pacers are pretty good.
I'm a huge Victor Oladipo.
I like Victor Oladipo. I don't like his singing.
I feel like you would hate Miles Turner.
He's all right.
He's soft.
He's pretty soft. Yeah, he's like a Tempur-Pedic out there. But I do like Victor Oladipo. The R&B singing, he can miss me with that a little bit, but I think he's a pretty good player. Super underrated player in the East.
Yep. No, I like what the Pacers got going on.
And remember, they took the Cavs to 7 last year. They should have beaten the Cavs.
Yeah.
They didn't fold like everybody else does against LeBron in Game 7s. You know, and you can look at that and say they're just like you. They're just like the Raptors. They pushed LeBron to the brink and then they folded. Right. So at the end of the day, which one of these teams is ahead of each other? We don't know. You're all the same. You've all folded to LeBron when it counts most.
Right.
So now you're all starting from scratch, if you ask me. All right. So a couple more things. We'll get into. We'll quickly go around the league in a little bit, but I just want to touch on. This is kind of a week-old story, but it's interesting nonetheless. The Terry Rozier trade speculation. We've obviously talked about how, you know, Rozier is playing. His minutes are way down. They're like down to, I don't know. I mean, in the playoffs he was up around 28. Now they're down to,
I think he's like at 18, 20 maybe.
17, something like that.
Yeah.
I have the numbers here. They are. He's averaging 7.5 points in 22.7 minutes. Compared to the playoffs where he averaged 16.5 points over 36.6 minutes. So he's down 14 minutes per game, and consequently his points more than cut in half. And that's for a player who, I think he's 24, and I mean, you look at him and you think, you got a little bit more of developing to do, but you could be a star in this league. And he knows it. And I don't blame him for knowing it. And he's going to be a restricted free agent after this year. And he saw Marcus Smart get his contract. Kyrie Irving's talking about re-upping. Terry Rozier wants to be in a position to showcase what he can do so he can get paid. I mean, I don't blame him for that.
He's going to get paid, one way or the other.
Right, he's going to get paid.
You got teams like the Magic who couldn't find a point guard if they fell into a shopping cart full of them. Right,
the Magic could be a good fit. And so that brings me to last week we had some trade speculation. Bill Simmons, of all people, was the first to say that Rozier is unhappy with his playing time, and teams around the league know that the Celtics need to trade him. And then the Athletics, Shams, how do you pronounce his name?
Shams Charania?
Charania. Anyway, like a far more, like basically the Schefter of the NBA at this point, or one of.
Our apologies to Woj.
Yeah, our apologies. Yeah, sorry, Woj. Came out and basically confirmed that and said that amongst there are at least 7 teams monitoring the whole Rozier situation. The Phoenix Suns have been the most aggressive, and so I'm just asking you, like at this point, should the Celtics legitimately consider trading Rozier? I mean, ASAP. I would say you have to do it ASAP. And if so, what do you think they could get for this guy?
I wouldn't do it ASAP. I think you got to give this collection of players at least another month. Maybe you get to Christmas and see what. And if you're still floundering, you know, then you make a move. What could they get for him? Restricted free agent. I don't know if the haul is going to be that big at this point.
I disagree. I say trade him ASAP.
Of course you do.
Because I love Terry Rozier, and I go back and forth if they should have chosen Terry Rozier or Marcus Smart or Kyrie. Who knows? And maybe the Celtics are going to hold on to them because they aren't convinced Kyrie's going to stay, and they don't love the knee.
Kyrie is a wild card.
He is a wild card because the Celtics could secretly be thinking, we're not planning on having Kyrie after this year, so we want Terry. And so in my mind, if the Celtics don't trade Terry Rozier, that tells me that they're
insurance policy.
They're letting Kyrie go or something because
or they're just not sure he's staying.
Right. And so I think to max. Otherwise, if you believe Kyrie's going to stay, you got to maximize the asset and trade Rozier ASAP. Don't wait till later.
What are you trying to get for him?
Well, okay, so that brings me to Bill Simmons. He had, was working the trade.
Fake trade alert?
Yeah, fake trade alert. But, it did include the Suns before Shams mentioned the Suns. So, we'll look at it. He said Rozier to Phoenix. Boston gets the rights to swap either their 2019 Sacramento first-round pick. So this year, Sacramento is currently 8th in the West. So
playing good ball.
Playing good ball.
Kangs playing good ball.
Playing good ball. Pretty cool team, actually. Or their Memphis first, top 8 protected. So the Celtics could get Memphis' first-round pick this year, unless it's in the top 8, or something like that.
Something like that.
For Phoenix's 2019 first, and remember Phoenix sucks.
2-11 and almost beat the Celtics.
Right. So you could do that. Essentially, what he's saying here is you trade Terry Rozier in either the Kings pick or the Grizzlies pick this draft, and get Phoenix's first-round pick in this draft. I like that.
I mean, yeah, but you got to think the Suns would, probably try to at least top 1 protect that.
But do you think that's unrealistic? Do you think that's a good haul? Like, if you're the Suns, I look at the Suns and I think, man, you got Devin Booker, you got DeAndre Ayton. If Josh Jackson ever could develop into the slash wing that you hope he could, you're a point guard away.
Mikal Bridges.
Right. You are.
No, I mean they need a point guard. I mean they think Eliakobo might be that one day, but he's 17 or 18. He's really young. I like Eliakobo's game, but I mean, I think Rozier would. I mean, that'd be a huge pickup for them.
I think it would be Rozier would fit in great with that team.
But
he's sick.
At this point, the Suns start off 2-11. Do they almost gamble and say maybe we'll just offer him, send him an offer sheet in the offseason and dare the Celtics to match it?
That's another thing too.
Yeah.
But I think teams would want Terry Rozier.
Absolutely.
So I think you could get a lot for him. I think what you should have done is traded for him at the draft over the summer. Yeah. I mean, that's what they should have done. They should have traded him at the draft and figured it out then. That way you wouldn't be in this mess. Again, things have changed since then. Like, you've gotten this commitment from Kyrie and all this stuff, but I still would have considered trading him at the draft. I don't know.
I can't disagree.
There's also talk of maybe trading him to Orlando. You said that.
Yep.
I don't know what you would get in a situation like that. Probably draft pick.
Just got to get a pick, yeah.
I don't know. I love Terry Rozier, but I think he's one of these guys who he's definitely overvalued a little bit because of how good he's looked with the Celtics and the position Stevens has put him in.
Well, Brad Stevens makes everyone better, right?
Right. When you look at Avery Bradley, exhibit A of someone that wasn't as good as we thought. And I think Terry Rozier is way better than Avery Bradley, but
on the offensive end, sure.
You're right, on the offensive end, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you could get a team to bite and really give you a piece for Terry Rozier.
I don't hate it.
You don't hate it?
Yeah. I would like to walk back on the last podcast. I did say that I thought they might trade Kyrie at the deadline and roll with Terry Rozier. I'm going to walk that back.
That would be great. Can you imagine if they traded Kyrie? Like, what could you get for Kyrie?
I don't know.
Like, would you do Kyrie for Karl Anthony Towns?
No, he's just one of the guys.
Right, he is, but he's also 23. I don't know. You're right. I wouldn't either.
Yeah, you don't like Karl Anthony Towns.
The only thing I love Kyrie, and unlike most people.
I'm a huge Kyrie fan.
Yeah, and unlike most people, I don't mind his weird personality and the weird stuff that comes out of his mouth. I think it's fine to me. Like, he's weird, but I'll take weird, compared to like what everyone else in the NBA is
he's
like.
He's just really nasty.
He is really filthy. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see how this goes because it could get better quickly, and then there's really no talk of these trades. But if it snowballs, someone's going to go, and I just think because you have too many players, then someone's got to give. And I think Terry Rozier makes the most sense, but
I agree.
A lot of people are talking Jaylen Brown too. But I mean, you can't just give up on a number 3.
Yeah, I mean, Jaylen Brown, the only way they trade him is if it's in a larger package for a star. And, we can, talk about Anthony Davis till the cows come home, but the Pelicans aren't ringing that bell.
It's also, what do? Do you trade? Like, your problem right now is you have too many players that believe they should have the ball all the time, and it's creating this logjam. So what are you going to do? Trade Jaylen Brown for, like, Bradley Beal and get someone even better and some more ball hogging?
You don't want Bradley Beal. You don't
Well,
want
that's what I'm saying. Like,
you don't want anything to do with the Wizards.
Like, the problem is you have too many guys that think they're good. So what are you going to trade Jaylen Brown for someone better than Jaylen Brown? And then, like, I think you just got to work it out.
Oh, yeah. They'll let it ride for at least another month.
All right. So before we get out of here, I want to go around the NBA a little bit. Not too far around.
Really just to one point.
It's really just to one point, specifically to the Golden State Warriors. So, in case you've missed it, some scuffle.
Trouble in paradise.
Yeah, yes. Trouble in Oakland. A lot of, I don't know if you've ever been to Oakland, but there's a lot of trouble there.
Stop.
It's a tough spot.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot. So Draymond Green and Kevin Durant got in a little tiffy, little argument on the bench the other day. Kevin Durant wanted the ball. Draymond didn't pass it to him at the end of the game, whatever. And they got into a heated argument in the bench, and I guess it spilled over into the locker room.
Yep.
The team is, I guess, annoyed with Durant because they don't think he's going to stay in free agency. There was a report that a Warriors player said there's absolutely no way Kevin Durant stays after this. Like, it was that bad.
Yeah, I think what he said was, with Draymond Green getting suspended for the game, was, we might as well suspend Dre for a game, and at least in the offseason we can say, hey, KD, we had your back.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's basically what the player was saying.
Okay.
Per the Athletics' Marcus Thompson. Give credit where credit's due.
Okay, good. And I guess the reports of the locker room stuff per Woj and other people. But in general, like, what do you make of that? Like,
look, I mean,
is this like the Patriots last year, like the Palace Q, like down goes their version of the dynasty, or is it?
I don't think so. I think it's just two guys. I mean, you got to imagine Draymond Green probably is just a pain to deal with day in and day out. He's got to rub you the wrong way constantly, and I'm sure that he's a competitor. They like him on the team, and with Steph out, KD just wanted the ball. I do think that it's probably pretty obvious to a lot of people in that organization that Kevin Durant is likely gone. Right? He came there to win titles and kind of improve his image after leaving. He thought, hey, I win a couple titles, people will start liking me again, and that didn't happen.
It's been the opposite.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy.
It's gone downhill, right? So I think they have to say, we win 3 in a row. He's probably going to bounce and try to actually improve his image by going somewhere else.
But the thing is, and that's what's crazy about this whole thing, is his image is only going to get worse. Because, like, the big talk is he's going to go to the Lakers with LeBron and maybe recruit Anthony Davis or something.
See, and it's
like, that's even worse. Like, that's more.
I don't think so. I think the two places he would go would either be to the Knicks and try to revive the Mecca.
I guess that would be cool, but it's
or to the Clippers.
All that is so weird. Like, why can't someone just do something cool and, like, go to the Orlando Magic? KD should go to the Bucks and play with Giannis. That would be sick.
That would be sick.
That'd be sick, and I would actually like that. Like, because Kevin Durant has annoyed me recently, but, like,
shocking.
He's not irredeemable. Like, he can be redeemed.
No, and I think
God can forgive him.
No, I actually like Kevin Durant. I find myself as one of the few remaining people on the boat. I mean, he's just a guy who wants to play ball.
Yeah, and he's one of these guys too, this new wave of athlete who he's really, really worried about his image. Like, we know this with the Twitter burner accounts. He's a weird dude, wired differently. But it's just like, everyone's got to go to New York, to LA, follow Braun, follow the championships.
Well, I don't think he'll follow LeBron, because Kevin Durant's, there was that Sports Illustrated article a few years ago when he was on the Thunder where I'm sick of being number 2, sick of being the second best player, sick of being the number 2 overall pick. He's not going to go to LA and be in LeBron's shadow.
See, but I think he's in Steph's shadow in Golden State.
Right, which is why he's going to leave.
Right.
Because that's Steph's team, Steph's franchise.
Well, but then his problem is, it's like, where are you going to go? Because you need to be with someone like that to win. So I don't know. I think
Porzingis.
Right.
If he ever starts running again.
And I think it would be cool if he went. Go to Brooklyn. Don't go to the Knicks. Go to Brooklyn. That'd be cool.
Stop.
With Kyrie Levert. I would like to see.
That's not his name.
I would like to see Durant with the Bucks and Giannis, or do something cool. Go to Charlotte. That court is so sick. Like, I would like to see KD and Kemba balling out in Charlotte. That'd be cool.
Or just goes to the Suns.
That'd be cool too, but, like, I'd like to see the Suns, like, really just build it with. I don't know. Yeah, go somewhere like that. Go to the Suns.
All right.
That'd be a cool team.
But I mean, I think the drama you're seeing now with them is kind of just all of them feeling that this is it for this core group, at least.
Yeah, and I think
Clay's also going to be a free agent. He could stay, but it's very much an urgent sense of this is our last ride, probably.
Yeah, and I mean, let's not forget. I mean, how old is Steph Curry? Steph Curry is
30?
He's 30, right? So Steph Curry is 30, and he gets hurt every year. So people keep talking like, oh, just Steph Curry is going to be Steph Curry for a bunch of years, and he's so good and all this, and he is. He's great, but I look at Steph Curry and I'm like, every year you have a pretty bad leg injury, and you look like you're just piecing it together in the playoffs. You know, you're not getting any younger. We know what the deal is with Draymond. If Katie's going to leave, I don't know. People talk about the Warriors like they're definitely going to keep it going for 3 or 4 more years. I don't see it. It would have to turn into Kevin Durant's team almost immediately, and they'd have to go get somebody else. Or just re-up Klay Thompson.
I mean, they have to re-up Klay Thompson.
They have to re-up Klay Thompson. But, I don't know. I just think Steph's days, like, he's approaching, you know, I don't want to say the cliff.
The cliff?
I don't want to say the cliff.
The cliff.
But I just
Dakota
he gets
Kellerman
hurt.
in the house.
He gets hurt so often. And for a guy like him that relies on quickness so much, I just think, I don't know. But again, he's so good.
When he's right, he's
so nasty.
he's so good.
That whole team is sick. I mean, maybe it's as simple as just get Draymond out of there and figure something out.
Right. Well, I mean, Draymond thinks he's a max player, so.
To bring it back to the Celtics, though,
Yep.
as good as these other teams in the East have looked, including the Raptors and what the Sixers might look, I still think that it's the Celtics who, if they ever were to meet in the NBA Finals, would pose the biggest threat.
I'm still going to roll with the Raptors.
You think so, just because of Kawhi?
Kawhi, Danny Green, Kyle Lowry. I love OG Anunoby. I love Pascal Siakam. They're so versatile on defense. Bunch of guys who get after it.
But they would get destroyed at Golden State. I think the Celtics could win a game. The Raptors would lose by like 45 if they played a game in Oracle.
I mean, we don't really know that. It's a
If
new,
we don't,
it's a
you're
new
right.
Raptors team. DeMar DeRozan's going to fold in San Antonio now instead.
True. That's a team to keep an eye out on, too. Anyway, all right, we're running a little long, so we're going to wrap
let's
it
get
up
out of
here. So, you know, this was good. I'd like to reset the table.
Yep.
You know,
Hopefully we'll have Courtney back in the fold.
Yep. And hopefully we'll get some more good guests. Again, thanks to Blake Murphy.
Yep. Thanks, Blake.
That was great stuff. Good nugget on the Morris twins. And, you know, I think going forward, you can expect me and Josh most of the time.
Yep.
Now that, again, Darren has left, it's really going to be just us going forward.
It's our ship.
So, yeah, we'll look forward to doing this every week. And, you know, hopefully the next time we pick this up, the Celtics have turned it around. We won't have to be so negative. Yeah. Because that can wear thin. As someone who just did a Red Sox podcast for 6 months and was just unrelentingly negative all the way up until they won the World Series.
Yeah.
I can tell you I'm tired of it.
Tough L for you to take.
Right. So, again, thanks for listening, guys, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah. See you later, guys.
Say that you a baller. You lame, can't play this game, step up. Say that you a baller.